Let's just say it's after dinner, you've got a fork in your hand, somebody says, hey, I got deliveries. Where?
Hollywood is in chaos after 67-year-old Keenan Ivory Wayans finally revealed the dark truth behind the disappearance of Wayman, a family secret debated for decades. Insiders say this confession shatters the Wayans legacy, exposing a story far darker than anyone imagined. Why did Keenan Ivory Wayans wait until now to reveal the truth about Wayman? And what drama has his confession uncovered in Hollywood? Join us as we uncover the true story of Corwin Hawkins, the man behind Wayman, and explore how his life, career, and tragic passing impacted everyone who knew him. The birth of Amazing Grace in Houston's comedy clubs. Corwin Anthony Hawkins was born on March 12, 1965, in Houston, Texas, to parents Wilbert and Joyce May Hawkins, and from an early age, he possessed a spark that set him apart from everyone around him. After graduating from St. Peter's Catholic High School in 1982, young Corwin discovered his true calling in the comedy clubs of Houston and Dallas, where he would spend the next several years perfecting a craft that would eventually earn him national recognition. His natural charisma and fearless approach to comedy made him an instant favorite among audiences who had never seen anything like him. It was in these Texas comedy clubs that Corwin created his legendary alter ego, Amazing Grace, a drag persona that would become synonymous with his name and legacy. Unlike many female impersonators of the era, who favored long, flowing gowns and pageant-style glamour, Amazing Grace had a signature look all her own. She wore immaculate bobbed hairstyles, elegant Chanel two-piece suits, and expensive Ferragamo shoes, creating a sophisticated aesthetic that was more ladies who lunch than traditional drag queen. Amazing Grace's style was fancy and elegant, which made a funny contrast with the wild and crazy comedy that followed. The mix of grace and chaos surprised the audience and made them laugh even more. Corwin didn't pick the name Amazing Grace by chance. He earned it by working as a body double for the famous Grace Jones on her album covers and music videos. He could copy her bold energy but also add his own funny twist, which made his performances unforgettable. For 4 years straight, every Tuesday night in Dallas comedy clubs, Corwin performed 2-hour shows that were completely made up on the spot. The crowds were so big that people had to stand, and he kept them hooked the whole time. This showed his incredible skill at telling stories, creating characters, and delivering quick, sharp comedy. But while Corwin was building his reputation as one of Texas's most beloved performers, the national stage was about to discover what locals had known for years: breaking into national television during comedy's golden age. In the early 90s, black comedy was booming, with shows like Def Comedy Jam on HBO and Comic View on BET giving black comedians a chance to perform for huge national audiences. Corwin Hawkins, known as Amazing Grace, was one of the very few professional female impersonators to appear on these big shows. His performances were full of energy and excitement, bringing the same fearless style that made him famous in Texas to people all across the country. His comedy shows had many memorable characters besides Amazing Grace. He made each one exciting with different costumes and quick, funny improvisations that kept the crowd guessing. Corwin was also famous for copying stars like Whitney Houston, Diana Ross, Mariah Carey, and Grace Jones, which comedy fans loved. He was one of the first to use DJs and sound effects in his routines, making the jokes even funnier and inspiring many comedians who came after him. Corwin's success in comedy brought him more than just laughs. In 1991, he won the title of Miss Gay Texas, showing his skill in female impersonation. The following year, he became Texas Entertainer of the Year. And in 1992, he earned the enormous honor of National Entertainer of the Year in Louisville, Kentucky. These awards weren't just about looks. They were proof of his talent, hard work, and influence in the entertainment world. While Corwin was ascending to the top of the comedy world, someone very important was watching his performances and seeing something special. The meeting that would change everything. By the early 90s, Keenan Ivory Wayans had already carved out a place as one of the most powerful and influential voices in black entertainment. He wasn't just another comedian or actor. He was a visionary who reshaped the landscape of television comedy. As the creator, host, and star of In Living Color, Wayans demonstrated a rare gift: the ability to recognize raw, unpolished talent and give it a platform to shine before millions of viewers. His show wasn't simply about laughs. It was about opening doors for performers who mainstream Hollywood might have otherwise overlooked. In Living Color became a huge hit. The show stood out with daring skits, sharp social commentary, and humor that went further than most TV shows at the time. Wayans became known for taking chances, giving roles to performers who didn't fit the typical Hollywood image but had creativity. In doing so, Wayans not only entertained, but also changed the industry's perception of what comedy could be. He proved that diverse voices and unconventional performers could captivate audiences just as much, if not more, than the established stars of the time. His influence extended far beyond the show itself, inspiring a generation of comedians, actors, and writers to embrace their uniqueness and challenge the status quo. But even as Corwin prepared to step into the biggest role of his life, an enemy was already threatening to steal everything away. The role of a lifetime. When Corwin Hawkins arrived on the set of A Low Down Dirty Shame, he brought with him all the energy, professionalism, and comedic genius that had made him a star in the comedy world. The film's plot centered on Andre Shame, played by Wayans, a former LAPD detective turned private investigator who takes on a dangerous case involving a drug lord he thought he had killed years earlier. Corwin's character, Wayman, was Peach's roommate and served as comic relief.
Hey, relax, man. I know how to handle these people.
Throughout the film's action-packed storyline, appearing in several memorable scenes that showcased his impeccable timing and natural charisma. The scene, filled with rapid-fire dialogue and physical comedy, demonstrated Corwin's ability to hold his own alongside experienced actors and proved that he had the range to succeed in feature films. His delivery of lines and his physical presence on screen showed that he was more than just a comedy club performer, but a genuine actor with the potential for a long and successful career in Hollywood. Throughout the production, Corwin bonded with his castmates and impressed everyone with his professionalism and positive attitude. Jada Pinkett, who was also relatively early in her film career, found a kindred spirit in Corwin, and the chemistry between them translated beautifully on screen.
I just can't believe this is happening to her, you know what I'm saying? Because she's such good people.
Wayans, as director, recognized that he had made the right choice in casting Corwin, as the comedian brought an authenticity to Wayman that made the character feel real rather than a caricature. In a film that mixed action, comedy, and drama, Corwin's performance added a layer of genuine humanity that elevated the entire project. However, as filming progressed, those close to Corwin noticed that his health was beginning to decline, though he tried desperately to hide it and continue giving his best performance. The hidden battle behind the scenes. While Corwin Hawkins looked full of life during the filming of A Low Down Dirty Shame, he was secretly fighting a battle he couldn't win. In the late 80s and early 90s, AIDS was hitting the LGBTQ+ community very hard, taking the lives of many artists, performers, activists, and everyday people. For those in entertainment, being diagnosed with AIDS often meant more than just dealing with the illness. It could also mean losing jobs, friends, and the chance to keep their careers because of the stigma around the disease. Corwin was diagnosed with HIV, which later turned into AIDS, but he kept this private from most people and the public. In the early 90s, there were no strong treatments yet, so getting HIV or AIDS almost always meant getting sicker over time with no way to stop it. The medicine that would later help people live with HIV, called combination therapy, didn't become common until 1996. Sadly, that was 2 years too late for Corwin and many others who passed away during that time. The production team, including Wayans, did everything they could to accommodate Corwin's needs while keeping his condition private out of respect for his wishes. They adjusted filming schedules, provided extra support, and rallied around their castmate who was fighting the battle of his life. Corwin's determination to complete his scenes, even when his body was failing him, demonstrated the same courage and resilience that had defined his entire career. But as summer 1994 approached, Corwin's condition deteriorated rapidly, and the inevitable could no longer be postponed. A light goes out in Dallas. On August 5, 1994, Corwin Anthony Hawkins passed away at Baylor Hospital in Dallas, Texas, at just 29 years old. The official cause of passing was listed as pneumonia, which was accurate but incomplete, as the pneumonia was a complication of AIDS that his weakened immune system couldn't fight off. The news of Corwin's passing devastated the tight-knit comedy community in Texas and beyond.
Look, I think I know where she is. I gotta go find her.
You're not going anywhere.
Where he had been a beloved fixture for years. Fellow performers who had shared stages with amazing grace mourned the loss of not just a talented comedian, but a genuine pioneer who had the courage to be himself at a time when that courage often came at a terrible cost. The Tuesday night shows at Dallas comedy clubs would never be quite the same without Corwin's 2-hour improvisational marathons that had drawn standing-room-only crowds for 4 straight years. Corwin was laid to rest at Houston Memorial Gardens in Pearland, Texas, surrounded by family, friends, and countless fans whose lives he had touched through his performances. His gravestone stands as a permanent reminder of a life that burned brightly but far too briefly, leaving those who loved him to wonder what heights he might have reached if he had been given more time. While Corwin's body was gone, his performance in A Low Down Dirty Shame would ensure that his spirit lived on, though in a bittersweet way that would become apparent when the film finally reached audiences. A Star Shines Posthumously. When A Low Down Dirty Shame premiered on November 23, 1994, it carried an emotional weight beyond its action comedy plot. The film opened to mixed reviews from critics, with Roger Ebert giving it 1.5 out of 4 stars, and Variety criticizing its formulaic approach, but audiences responded differently, particularly to Corwin Hawkins' scene-stealing performance as Wayman. Every laugh his character generated in packed theaters was a reminder of the talent that had been lost just months earlier and the career that would never be. For Keenan Ivory Wayans, the film's opening weekend brought conflicting emotions as he watched audiences respond positively to Corwin's performance, while knowing that the man who had created those moments would never get to experience this success himself. The dedication to Corwin's memory that appeared in the credits meant that thousands of viewers would leave theaters knowing his name.
And the nominees for Best Actress in a Groovy Nightclub Drama,
even if they would never get to see what else he might have accomplished. For the LGBTQ+ community, particularly Black queer people who rarely saw themselves represented in mainstream films, Wayman represented something important despite the character's limitations. Corwin's portrayal brought humanity and humor to a role that could have easily devolved into a stereotype, and his willingness to take on the character at a time when openly LGBTQ+ actors often couldn't get work in Hollywood was an act of courage. But even as audiences enjoyed the film, many wondered who this talented performer was and why they had never seen him in anything else. The legacy that lives on in Black cinema. Over the decades since its release, A Low Down Dirty Shame has developed a cult following, particularly within the Black community, where it's remembered as a fun, entertaining film that showcased Black talent both in front of and behind the camera. For fans who return to the film repeatedly, Corwin Hawkins' performance as Wayman remains one of the most beloved elements, with his scenes frequently quoted and celebrated on social media by new generations discovering the movie. His comedic timing and memorable lines have ensured that his work continues to entertain people more than 30 years after his passing. The film's enduring popularity on streaming platforms and cable television has introduced Corwin's performance to audiences who weren't even born when he passed away, giving his legacy new life with each viewing. Fan communities dedicated to 90s Black cinema frequently discuss Wayman as one of the great supporting characters from that era, and retrospectives about the film always highlight Corwin's contribution. Many fans who learn about Corwin's passing and his battle with AIDS express shock and sadness that such talent was lost so young.
Yeah, do me a favor, put Peaches in protective custody for 24 hours, will you?
Wondering what other roles he might have played if he had lived to see the medical advances that came just a few years later. This event, held 12 years after his passing, demonstrated that Corwin's impact hadn't faded with time, but had actually grown as more people discovered his work and learned his story. The tribute show featured performers doing their own versions of the characters Corwin had made famous, ensuring that Kelly Kelly, Deborah, and Phoenicia Puntain lived on in the hands of a new generation. While his legacy lives on, the question of what if continues to haunt those who knew him and those who have discovered his work posthumously. The AIDS crisis that stole a generation of talent. Corwin Hawkins passed at just 29, and sadly, his story was common during the AIDS crisis. In the 80s and early 90s, AIDS took the lives of many artists, performers, and creative people who should have had many more years to share their talent. The disease hit the LGBTQ+ community especially hard, affecting gay and bisexual men the most. Because of slow action from the government, social stigma, and little medical knowledge, the epidemic spread quickly. By the time Corwin passed away in 1994, hundreds of thousands of Americans had already died from AIDS, and the entertainment world had lost many of its brightest stars. In the early 90s, many people with AIDS kept it a secret because they were afraid of being treated badly, losing their jobs, or being left out by society. Corwin's family also stayed quiet about his illness. When he died, the official records said the cause was pneumonia, even though the pneumonia came from AIDS.
Oh, no, he didn't. Miss Peaches?
Because of this silence, Corwin's passing didn't inspire public action or push for better AIDS treatment and research the way some other famous people's passing away did. Looking back from our current perspective, where HIV is a manageable condition and people with the virus can expect to live normal lifespans, Corwin's passing feels even more tragic and unfair. He was born just a few years too early, diagnosed just a few years too soon, and died just a few years before treatments became available that would have saved his life and allowed him to have the thriving career that his talent deserved. The cruel randomness of timing meant that Corwin would never get to see his 30th birthday, never get to build on the success of A Low Down Dirty Shame, and never get to inspire the next generation of LGBTQ+ performers in person. His passing stands as a reminder of why AIDS research, treatment access, and destigmatization remain important issues even today, as HIV continues to affect marginalized communities disproportionately. Keenan Ivory Wayans' lasting tribute to his lost star. For Keenan Ivory Wayans, losing Corwin Hawkins wasn't just about saying goodbye to a funny performer. It was the end of what could have been a great success story. Wayans had found Corwin's amazing talent, gave him a chance to shine, and saw him prove he was ready for big movie roles. By dedicating A Low Down Dirty Shame to Corwin's memory, Wayans made sure people knew they were watching something special, a final performance from someone who deserved many more chances to make audiences laugh and think. In interviews over the years, when asked about the film and its cast, Wayans has spoken about Corwin with evident fondness and respect, remembering him as a professional who brought authenticity and humor to every scene. While Wayans has had a long and successful career creating comedy that pushes boundaries and challenges audiences, he has acknowledged that Corwin's passing added a somber note to what should have been a purely celebratory moment. Wayans' decision to cast Corwin rather than wait for a bigger name proved both artistically and morally right, even though the circumstances of Corwin's incident meant the happy ending everyone had hoped for would never materialize. The film stands as a testament to Wayans' willingness to take chances on deserving performers and his commitment to creating opportunities for diverse voices in entertainment. By giving Corwin his big break, Wayans ensured that his legacy would extend beyond Texas comedy clubs and reach audiences around the world, even if Corwin would never experience that success himself. Which aspect of Corwin Hawkins's story resonates most deeply with you? Does his courage in being openly queer during such a dangerous and difficult time inspire you? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.